Pentacle chapter 9, Knight of Cups. Kain sighed wearily before going to his car, and he will have to visit the bank tomorrow to make certain that there was not a hold or anything suspicious going on with his account. The ride back home was a slow one, and since he had left at 5, there was a lot of traffic, and he finally arrived home around 6, and he took a moment to bask in the sight. There was his tree, his thorny, flowerless rose bushes, his pasca flower, his flowering hibiscus plant, and he saw the neighbor's cat giving him a disdainful look before jumping into his ferns. Everything was as it should be, and after he finished admiring the garden, he became aware of the unfamiliar car. Uncle Guest's car was also there, and just what he needed, more controversy. And he peeked into his window, and his grandmother was pouring tea for the chief of police and his wife. And Kain ran to his car with a vague hope that nobody had noticed his approach, and when he turned on the car, he screeched when he became aware of his father's presence. Jack had an extra set of keys to Kain's patrol car, and Kain's first instinct was to flee, but his father's fragile, delicate hand on his shoulder kept him from escaping. Jack took his son's hand to comfort the youth. "And why do you let that man in there?" barked Kain. "It's bad enough that I had to put up with him from 8 to 4, but now he must harass me in my home as well." "In what way has he been harassing you?" said Jack patiently. "He asks stupid questions, and so do his underlings. It is maddening to be asked at least once a day about Eric, and how am I supposed to move past it when they keep bringing him up?" said Kain, resting his head on the steering wheel. "Did he specifically ask you about Eric?" said Jack. "He didn't ask, but he gossiped about it in my proximity, and he stopped talking about it when he saw me. But I could tell that he was fighting the urge to ask me about it, and he's dying to know just like everyone else," said Kain before sighing deeply. "I will tell him to leave," said Jack, getting out of his car. And Kain moved his car a few paces to allow the unwanted visitors to drive away. And much to his annoyance, the chief of police walked towards him, and he locked the car doors, and he played a disc with heavy metal music, and he raised the music to maximum, and tried as he might, the chief wasn't able to get his voice to reach Kain, and he wrote a message on his notepad, and he placed the note in front of Kain's windshield wiper, and this made it impossible to ignore. "I am sorry," said the message. Kain lowered the music to listen to his boss' terrible apology, and the man finally said, "It was insensitive of me to speak about Eric in your presence, and I will send a memo tonight to forbid your co-workers from asking or even speaking about it in your presence." "Don't bother. It isn't illegal for them to harass me with a thoughtless question," said Kain. "They will stop asking if I order them to. And the situation is creating a toxic work environment, and we all need to tolerate each other's presence to function as a unit," said the chief. "If my presence is causing problems, just transfer me over and save yourself the hassle," said Kain bitterly. "I am the one who doesn't fit in." "I am not going to do that. It isn't right," said the chief vehemently. "You know what isn't right is you harassing me outside of work just because your men are completely incapable of being sympathetic towards a victim. Those men and women and their cruel professional curiosity have no business calling themselves cops," concluded Kain. Kain's work stayed with the chief of police, and he went back inside to fetch his wife, and the unwelcome guest finally left, and with them gone, Kain was able to wash away the filth he had accumulated throughout the day. And he had been planning to go out tonight with Oberon, but Arden was probably going to be there, and he wasn't in the mood to be near a co-worker, and he tested Oberon to inform him that he wasn't going out tonight. He was so tired, so very tired. Oberon read the text message twice. "Tired, so very tired" line didn't inspire him much confidence. He decided to go visit Kain to see how he was doing, and around 9 Oberon arrived, and he knocked on the door 3 times before going inside with the house key. And Oberon found Kain lying on the couch listening to an audiobook, and sitting nearby was Jack practicing his guitar, and Grandma Esther was watching an old sitcom while sewing. Everything was peaceful and serene. "You see that he is fine?" whispered Arden, who was standing behind Oberon. "And can we go out to party then?" "Oberon, welcome," said Kain, springing from the couch. "And Grandma made more food than usual, and you can have some if you like." "Grandma's leftovers sounds awesome," said Arden, allowing himself within. "You," hissed Kain. "Yes, what about me?" asked Arden, twirling a curl from his blonde wig. "Nothing. Do whatever you want," said Kain, returning to the couch to sulk. What did you do? Asked Oberon, folding his arms. Why do you assume that I did something wrong? Said Arden, shrugging his shoulder. It is fine, Oberon, said Kain, going to the kitchen to bring out the leftover. He made a plate of food for Arden and Oberon dug into it immediately while Arden pecked at the food just to be polite. He didn't truly eat anything. He just moved it around left and right. Hey, it is a sin to waste food, said Oberon, taking Arden's plate. And if you didn't want to eat, you shouldn't have said you wanted food. So you two work together, said Jack, coming over to interrogate Arden. Unfortunately, yes, said Arden. I am not going to sugarcoat things. Your son hates me. Hate is a strong word. As long as you are not within my line of sight, I don't remember your existence, said Kain dryly. Did you ask my son about the bite mark on his neck? Asked Jack. Kain moaned like a wounded animal. He rested his face on his hand before going to his room, and Oberon finished his plate quickly before going after Kain. And as Oberon entered, Kain locked the door, and he didn't want Arden to intrude on his happiness. Why did you invite that tick? Asked Kain. I was under the impression that he wasn't a good friend of yours, just a plaything. Have things changed? Nothing has changed. It is just as he works with you. He expressed concern when he heard that you were not feeling well, said Oberon. If he was truly concerned about my well-being, he would have respected my desire for me not to see him anymore, said Kain. Does it bother you at work? Asked Oberon. Only on the first day, and he wore vampire fangs and a stupid Dracula cape in an attempt to scare me. I don't know if that was his idea of a joke or not, but it wasn't funny, whined Kain. Oh, poor Kain, said Oberon, hugging his friend. Were you scared? Yes, lied Kain, but I didn't give him the pleasure of seeing me cry. I'm going to have a serious talk with that asshole, said Oberon, making his way towards the door. No, don't, hissed Kain. Why? Asked Oberon, confused. Because, said Kain, and his ears turned red while he struggled to come up with a good reason. Oberon in the end went to yell Arden's ear off, and Arden said in his defense, Look, I am sorry, alright? I didn't think he had been attacked for real. I'm sorry. They told me that Kain had a vampire phobia, and I thought it was a joke, so I went to see if they were pulling my leg. Who told you about the vampire attack? Asked Oberon, folding his arms. Please stop calling it a vampire attack, said Jack. Vampires aren't real. That's debatable, said Grandma Esther. Mom, you can't be serious, laughed Jack. And do you truly believe in vampires? Esther shrugged her shoulder before returning to her needlepoint. Whether they were real or not, it didn't affect her life. I am curious to know who started the office rumor about me, said Kain. Roberto is the one who told me about the vampire phobia, said Arden. And he called Roberto Diaz to ask him where he had heard the rumor about Kain. My father was discussing one of his patients during dinner, and he mentioned that the man had engaged in vampirism with a certain Kain Sanson, and we laughed thinking that he was joking, and he then said that it wouldn't surprise him if this Kain Sanson developed a phobia for anything related to vampires, said Roberto, who was on speaker. Like his father's like the criminal psychologist who was dealing with the wannabe vampire. His father Angel was a criminal psychologist who was being tasked with deciding if Eric was mentally fit enough to stand trial, and instant Eric opened his mouth, he sounded even more insane. He was fascinating, like any charismatic psychopath. Why did Eric attack Kain? Asked Jack. Angel came to the phone to answer the question. Eric claims that Kain is a descendant of a vampire by the name of Gabriel Sanson, and he wanted to drink of Kain's dormant vampiric blood in order to become a true vampire. Esther laughed heartily in spite of herself, and she started laughing when she saw Kain pouting, and then asked the pertinent question, is Gabriel a vampire? Nobody in this house has ever called Gabriel Sanson a vampire, said Esther. How did Eric learn of Gabriel? Asked Oberon. Last summer, Eugenia was writing a paper about my ancestor, and I told her about him while Eric drove us about, and this is probably how Eric came to know Gabriel, said Kain, rubbing his temple. But enough about Eric. I am sick of talking about him. Now that all of that is settled, do you forgive me, Kain? And if I did harm, it was out of ignorance. It wasn't my intention to poke fun at what happened to you, and I went through something similar when I was younger, and I'm not going to bore you with the details. The point is that I understand you, said Arden, extending his hand in friendship. Kain looked at the hand before looking at Arden, and he didn't believe Arden one bit, and his jealousy was blinding him to the sincerity of Arden's words. And Kain looked at Oberon, and Oberon clearly had believed every word that Arden said. And since he wanted to make Oberon happy, he shook hands with Arden. And as the man shaking hands, Kain coughed nervously, and Oberon was still looking at him with concern. And Oberon eventually asked, Do you want me to stay to watch a movie or something? I feel a little better, lied Kain, and we can go out together if you don't mind me being a third wheel. Oh, Kain, you are never going to be a third wheel. You can intrude in my playdates as often as you like, said Oberon, hugging Kain. Kain smiled shyly before changing out of his pajama, and the friends went to the twist, and Oberon danced with Arden while Kain danced with whatever stranger brushed up against him, regardless of their gender, and whenever he was prepositioned, Kain would go dance with somebody else, and Arden started curious that Kain was comfortable dancing with men. I want to dance with Kain, can I? Asked Arden, pointing at Kain. Oberon danced his way towards Kain before trading dance partner. Have you ever felt, started saying Arden when Kain rolled his eyes. No need to beat around the bushes, Arden. Just ask me what you want to know, and let me guess, you want to know if I'm gay, and you want to know if I like to take it where the light don't shine, and you want to know if I salivate at the sight of a male reproductive organ. The answer to all of your questions is no, said Kain dryly. Ah, that's a shame. If you are straight, why do you dance with men? Aren't you worried about what people are going to say about you? Said Arden, and he was afraid of what his peers would think if they found out that he liked the men. I went to public school, and I got used to people trash-talking me on a daily basis. It is amazing what a person can get used to. If you like me, great, and if you don't, I don't care. I admire your courage, said Arden, drawing Kain closer into the dancing embrace. The new song was even louder than the previous, and he was having a hard time listening to Kain, and since his hands didn't wander, Kain tolerated Arden's proximity. And Oberon narrowed his eyes, and from when he danced, it seemed like Arden was embracing Kain. Did your parents ever make a big deal about you dancing with men? Asked Arden. My mom died when I was young, and my father's a failed rock star who did everything and everyone. He doesn't feel like he's in a position to judge me. And my grandma has loved me unconditionally, and the only person who ever had an issue with me loving a man is my grandpa. But he's dead, said Kain. He blushed when he said more than he intended, and sometimes it is easy to be more honest with a stranger. Oberon frowned when he saw Kain blushing. Kain's nervous laughter didn't inspire him much confidence either. And what was they talking about? My, you're in love with a man, laughed Arden. So all that talk about you not liking men is a lie. Stop yelling, said Kain, covering Arden's mouth. You hear that, everyone? Said Arden, removing Kain's hand. Kain loves. Kain fell on top of Arden to cover his mouth with both his hands, and Arden laughing said, I'm just messing with you, and since you haven't told anyone my secret, I will keep yours. Arden, why do you do to Kain? Asked Oberon, coming over. It's fine, Oberon. A guy pushed me and I fell on top of him. Help me get him up, said Kain, sitting aside. Arden rose to his feet while holding on to his wig, and Oberon returned to dancing with Arden while Kain danced with literally anyone else. Arden suspected that Kain was in love with Oberon, and to test that theory, Arden kissed Oberon while he was within Kain's line of sight, and just like he had expected, Kain had a visible negative reaction, not one of anger, but of bitter resignation. I wish you hadn't kissed me, Oberon, thought a dejected Kain. The play day came to an end, and Kain went home to sulk while Oberon went to his apartment to mate with Arden. And during the heat of passion, Oberon called Arden by Kain's name, and Arden laughed heartily, but he wasn't going to allow the slip of the tongue to ruin his fun. The weekend came to an unsatisfactory end, and Kain put on his police officer uniform without much enthusiasm. When he arrived to work, he was greeted by looks of pity, and somehow this felt worse than being constantly questioned about Eric. Did your check finally clear? Asked Arden, making polite conversation. I don't know, I forgot to check, said Kain before sighing deeply. And we just wanted you to make an artist sketch, said Arden, finally getting to the matter of him. And did you already talk to the witness? Asked Kain. We did, but we didn't get anything useful out of him, said Arden. If she didn't say anything useful, then how am I supposed to make the drawing? Asked Kain. Don't you ask the question, asked Arden. My former master was the one who asked the questions. And then you have another forensic artist on staff, someone more experienced in asking questions, said Kain. I will get retired because he's as blind as a bat, said Arden. Let's just get this over with, said Kain, bringing out his drawing pad. Alright, that's the end of that chapter. Bye-bye. God bless.